So in this video, I'm going to cover the 6 things you need to get checked before your hair transplant that will tell you if your hair transplant will be a success or a failure with tremendous accuracy. Let's go. My name is Jabril. Welcome to My Hair Implants, the channel all about hair transplants and hair loss. If you haven't subscribed, consider subscribing. So let's have a look at the very first important factor. So the first thing I recommend you get checked before any hair transplant is something called donor density. As the name suggests, this is the density of your donor hair, and we measure it by a unit called follicular units. So basically this is defined as the number of natural follicular units per square centimeter. Basically how many follicular units you have per area. And sadly, this is one of the really important things that people don't get checked before the hair transplant, and if they do, it's done very quickly on the day of the procedure, which is really not ideal. The minimum you should really aim for is 40. So any number lower than 40, that hair transplant is really in doubt because it's just not ideal. And this is measured by a machine or a device called a densometer. You can see it here. It's kind of a handheld device that you find with most trichologists and hair transplant clinics. Again, if this is not one of the checks you have before your hair transplant, you should really be asking questions. And even though we said that it shouldn't be below 40, the best candidates are between 80 and 100, and some really rare cases people have over 100 follicular units per square centimeter, and those really do get the best results. But if you are within this range of 80 to 100, then your results, provided other factors are okay, your results are very likely to be extremely good. Funny story about donor density. I was consulting with a client only last week, and I told him to go and ask the clinic to work out, to give him a report about his current donor density. And he came back to me and he said the clinic even didn't know what I was talking about. So this just shows you that these checks are not being done in most clinics. And basically when you do that, you are taking your chances. Then you're just relying on pure luck whether your transplant turns out to be a success or failure. Hair shaft diameter is an extremely important thing to check before any hair transplant. And the hair shaft diameter basically means the diameter of your hair shaft, of the actual hair itself. And we say that anything greater than 80 microns in diameter is considered ideal for transplants, and anything below 60 is usually considered not ideal. They can still have a transplant, but their results will probably not be as good if they had a larger hair shaft diameter. And some surgeons say that the hair shaft diameter is actually the most crucial prognostic factor in determining the results of your surgery, meaning that this is the most important thing that will decide if your results are going to be average, good, terrible, or excellent. That's how important some surgeons regard this. And of course, the hair shaft diameter just gives you an idea about the client's average diameter, and it allows you also to assess the diameter not just of the recipient side or the balding area, but also more crucially of the donor side. Both are very important to know before the procedure. And this is measured using a tool called a micrometer caliper. It looks something like this. It's not too dissimilar to the calipers you use to measure things like body fat, but obviously this is extremely more sensitive because it's measuring things that are less than a millimeter. So where can you get these checks done? You can either get them done at a clinic if you find a really good clinic, although most clinics in Turkey, from my experience, don't even know what these are. And the second way you can get it done is you can go and see a trichologist. Before you even see any clinics, you can go to see a trichologist to do this for you, and then you can take your report and you know exactly what you're working with. And I'm actually looking for trichologists in North America, the UK, Europe at the moment. So if you're looking for a trichologist and you can't find one, just let me know and I'll see if I can find a good one near where you live. Frontal follicular unit density is a bit of a mouthful, but again, really important to measure before a hair transplant. I mean, the vast majority of people will need a hair who go for a hair transplant will end up having some work done on that frontal area. So it's really important to know the density, the frontal follicular unit density of that area. And in general, in adult men with no hair loss, with no visible hair loss, the typical density in this area is between 38 to 78 follicular units per centimeter squared. The average is about 52. Now, the average density in young males, say below the age of 20 or even lower than that, is approximately 80 to 100 follicular units per square centimeter, and this makes perfect sense. I mean, the density, the frontal hair density that you had at 18 or 19 is probably way better than what you have at 30 or 40. But you might say, so why is it important to know the frontal follicular unit density? Well, part of it is aesthetics, because you don't want to get the density too high or too low. You just want to get it so that it blends in with the natural density of that person. You don't want to have density that is so thick at the front that people look at it and say, this kind of looks fake, because the rest of your hair is not as dense. So this is really, really important. And sadly, you see a lot of clinics work, you see that frontal area, the hairline especially, that is just way too thick, and it gives really an unnatural results. A really good thing about working out all these things before you have a hair transplant is it solves one of the biggest issues people deal with before a hair transplant, which is the number of grafts that they need. With simple maths, if you have all these, if you have the follicular density and all those kind of things, and the area that is being transplanted, with very simple maths, you can work out very accurately how many grafts you need to achieve good density. It should not be guessing work like it is in most clinics, unfortunately, in Turkey. This is basically guessing work. They say, oh, we'll do maximum grafts, wherever that is. They'll just keep adding grafts until they look at it and they're happy with all that stuff. Is just guesswork. You don't need to be doing any guessing work with these facts in your hand. Halogen anagen ratio of donor hair. This sounds a little bit techy, but once I explain it, it will make perfect sense. So these are terms to describe the growth phase that your natural hair is in. So the anagen phase is actually when your hair is growing. So your hair goes through different phases, and the anagen is when it's growing, and the telogen is when your hair is at rest. There's actually another phase where your hair is naturally falling out to be replaced by the next cycle of hair growth. Now, normally 90% of your hair is in the anagen phase, as in it's growing, which is good. This is why your hair grows after you go to the barber, and then you have to go again to get a haircut. And 9% of your hair is in the telogen phase. Now, when you are losing hair, the percentages are obviously a lot lower, because less of your hair is growing and more is resting or falling out. And the reason you want to do this, especially for the donor hair, is that possibly will alert you to something going on, something like a skin condition or scalp condition that you need to examine further, and you probably will not go ahead with the hair transplant without getting all the facts. Again, I don't think this is in a lot of clinics. This doesn't really get done, and it doesn't get assessed, and basically people get rushed into having the hair transplant, even though there's an obvious issue that could have been detected if they looked at these kind of technical stuff. And a quick reminder, I still do consultation services, but remember, I still keep getting emails of people expecting me to kind of sit down and review their case and find them a clinic for free. That's not going to happen. So consultation services are a paid service. So this channel has all my free content, and my website as well. All the free content I have, I put it here absolutely free. It takes 2-3 days to film a video like this, so I'll do all of that for free. I can't also do a full consultation for free. So if you are keen on a consultation and you want me to find you a clinic, you can just book one by emailing me. The email should be somewhere in the description below. It's more important for aesthetics, which is to assess color, texture, and curl. It's really, really important, and it's not really that hard to do. So curly hair types usually are more challenging, because especially if they're curly at the base, the transplant will be more challenging because it requires expertise, it requires maybe different tools, and this is why some clinics specialize in certain hair types. They specialize in afro hair types, they specialize in other hair types. And usually curly or coarse hair, even though it's more difficult to work with in terms of the procedure itself, it usually gives better coverage. So somebody with afro hair will typically need less hair, less grafts put in, and will still get amazing density, while somebody, say, with Caucasian type hair will probably need more grafts to achieve the same density. So there's kind of good and bad in both. And we also need to do some color matching, because people's hair color is not consistent across the entire of their scalp, because some people have slightly different shades of colors in different areas, not just gray and black and brown. People have different hair shades, hair colors across their scalp, and it's really important that when you are doing the transplant, you check for this so that you don't end up with kind of weird color patterns after the hair transplant. So this is really important to examine before you go for your procedure. Now over to you. Have you had any of these checks done at any clinic? And if so, which clinic? Tell me in the comments section below. See you next time. Take care.